Hello and welcome to the RG10 Podcast. If you ever treat yourself to a Chinese takeaway at Twyford's Hong Kong garden, then before you step through the door, take a look at the building to the left. It's called Chiswick House and it looks pretty old, and that's because it is. But way back in 1666, it would have been a relatively modern piece of architecture on Twyford's skyline, and also the home of the Rose and Crown Inn. Perhaps the pub's most significant contribution to local history occurred on Christmas Eve of that year. Legend has it that a small boy was found shivering on the Rose and Crown steps. The landlord brought the boy in, fed and clothed him, and when fit, sent him on his way. And for the people of Twyford, this piece of benevolence turned out to be a very, very good move. The boy made his way to London and became stinking rich, but never forgot that act of decency, and he bequeathed a charity to our village. His name was Edward Polehampton, and I know what you're thinking. Did he name himself after Polehampton Infant School or Polehampton Junior School? Well, don't be daft. They were, of course, named after him. And the original Polehampton Boys' School, which is now the library, was built using money from his trust. Now, I must admit, I already knew some of the bones of this story, as my children both went to Polehampton Juniors, and every year the school puts on a production telling his story. I've seen it a couple of times and gave it a 5-star rating in the Maidenhead Advertiser's arts section. But what about the work of the charity itself? What do they do and who do they help? Well, the answer could cause you to have a real pause for thought. I've been speaking to James Fort, one of the charity's trustees and also an expert in local history.
Well, the Polehampton Charity was founded as a charitable bequest by Edward Polehampton, a carriage painter, a successful carriage painter by trade. In his will dated, dated sometime in 1722, and he left in the will his estate and effects, or most of it, to endow the charity. And the endowment consisted of land in parts of London, places like Stoke Newington, plots of land, and quite a substantial area in Twyford, which the inhabitants of Twyford were made the object of his of the charity, the beneficiaries of the charity. And very little happened then with the estate, because it was the subject of protracted litigation, as far as I can ascertain, for about the next 100, which lasted well over 100 years, between the descendants of Edward Polehampton, and no distributions, no benefit, as far as I can discover, was received by the inhabitants of Twyford till late in the 19th century. In 1885, the Veary family, one of the Veary family.
Let's go back. The Veary family.
A well-known family of Twyford.
Oh, okay, yep.
Unearthed the charity and had a private member's bill passed by Parliament in 1885, and used the proceeds of the charity to construct the construction of a school, a small village school by the railway line, which goes from Twyford to Henley. The endowment paid for the schoolmaster, and there was also a house which was actually built in 1725. What I suspect happened was that there was a modest income from the charity, maybe of the order of £1,000 a year from its endowments, which was paid out in the form of grants to the poor and the needy, and also to a certain extent for educational purposes of Twyford. And basically that state of affairs continued into the 1960s. By 1981, the charity had sold a substantial area of land behind the Duke of Wellington Public House to the Wokingham as in those days it was, the Woking District Council, now the Woking Borough Council. And I suppose it would be 2 or 3 acres was sold, and the land was converted into, was developed into one of the car parks that Twyford has. The library was erected on part of it, and also flats were erected. And the proceeds of that sale, which were probably 30 or 40,000, they went into the endowment. And since then, the charity has, the endowment has increased considerably. It's now must be, I think, about altogether with the property assets, probably approaching 3 million pounds. Most of it is invested in stocks and shares of a well-regarded stocks and shares. The trustees have a policy of not investing in armaments, alcohol or tobacco.
Do you see any, don't need you necessarily to go into details of who, but any like particularly, desperate situations, disturbing situations that you can help out with?
Yes, we do. And we are getting increasing numbers of applications for grants of a pure charitable nature. Basically, we live in an affluent, an area that's genuinely affluent, but there are an increasing number of people who slip between the cracks.
Would you envisage over the next few years, this is probably, where the charity is going to be doing most of its work?
I think so. That's my feeling, yes. We will. I mean, we are making strenuous efforts. We feel it's in keeping with the spirit of the original charitable bequest. And the trustees feel very strongly about that.
Now, and I guess an awful lot of these decisions that you and your fellow trustees are going to make, I guess some of them are pretty big decisions. Does that, I guess, weigh heavily on you? How much discussion goes into it?
Quite a lot of consideration. It depends. We make our decisions as more or less as and when by email. So there is a assistant clerk to the charity. She's responsible for administering grants, and she circulates the details of the applications, and then the trustees discuss among themselves whether to grant the application in whole or in part, and subject to any other conditions as they see fit. We also give funds, make grants to local organisations that benefit the community, like the Scouts, the Guides, the sports clubs of Twyford, and those can vary in amount from a few hundred to a few thousand. It just depends on the objective and on the merits of the application and the availability of funds.
So finally, Edward Polehampton himself, how important is the legacy that he's left the area?
Very important indeed to the people of Twyford. There's all sorts of ways in which the people of Twyford have benefited, not just by charitable grants or educational grants, but the charity has improved the amenities of the village in many and varied ways, and will continue to do so. I think that this man, somewhat mysterious individual, should be acknowledged as the patron saint of Twyford. And I hope that this will happen in my lifetime. Who knows? Miracles can happen.
That was James Ford. And to find out more, go to thepolehamptoncharity.co.uk. There you can find out how to apply for a grant, and it is pretty straightforward. We're going to put links to the charity in the show notes. Thanks for listening to the RG10 podcast. You can do your own bit of philanthropy and share this episode with friends or family, or anyone else for that matter. Or why not leave us a rating or review on whatever podcast platform you use. Goodbye.